Welcome to Thursday Thoughts, your weekly dose of real, honest conversation on all things personal growth. These are the chats Lucy and I love having every week over on Instagram. They're unfiltered, unedited, and always rooted in practical tools and a dose of inspiration. Let's dive in.
Are we talking about mid-year reset today?
I think so. I think this was your suggestion last week.
Well, no, I think I was just thinking that, we are nearly a full 6 months through the year. Everyone starts talking about this at the beginning of June, but it's not until the end of June that we're actually halfway through. So now that we're halfway through June, we're nearly there. And I just think it's worth having a think back over, potentially what your goals were for 2026 and where you are now. Because, the older I get, I think this is just what happens to humans in general. The older we get, the faster time starts to go. And I don't know about you, but I do not know how the actual hell it is, nearly the end of June. It feels like we've just literally started 2026. And so I just think it's a really good time to go, okay, we're halfway through, but we've still got halfway to go until the end of this year. So where am I at? Where did I want to be by this point? And perhaps where do I want to be by the end of this year? And I just thought it might be worth having a little think about it. Not least myself. So yes, that was it really.
Yes, it's crazy, isn't it? How time just flies. I think, this year for me has been a really strange year because I've learned a huge amount about myself, about, just so much, just about doing things differently and slowing down in a physical way, which has also kind of probably made me slow down in every way. I've always had this feeling in the past of like rush of like there's, it's almost like an urgency of like like a push, a constant sort of push from behind to achieve, to do all the things. And this year, because of my knee injury and all of that, and I can't believe that it's been 6 months pretty much since I did that, I've really learned to slow down. And yes, I set myself some goals at the beginning of the year. And when I reflect on those, I'm still kind of on track, but I'm doing things so differently to how I have it. And I think overall for the better, because I'm doing it in a way which is less urgent, less rushed, less kind of like this frenetic energy in a much sort of more relaxed, slower way. And yeah, I think I'm making it happen. And I think actually because I think you could look at your goals at 6 months in and go, shit, I am not achieving what I meant to do. And then gives you this sense of panic. So I think it's as long as you're moving in the right direction, that you're moving towards what you desire and what you want for yourself, then I don't think we should be panicking or, because that's not going to help anything. It's just a good way. It's good to reflect on, for me, just sitting here, it's like, oh my gosh, this year's been different. Good, different, bad, different. It's just different. It's not really, and I'm still kind of on track in terms of the direction I'm going in. And I'm happy with that. And I'm doing things which one of my big targets this year was to do more in-person stuff, to have more human stuff. My business has been up until this point pretty much an online business, and I've been craving some more human connection, and I've actually finally, that's really happening. So this week I'm about to go off to a festival, self-love camp, for 3 days, and Guy Brathwaite there for 50 amazing women. I've been doing some in-person live stuff in my home. And I'm going to be doing much more of that coming up, which is exciting. So, yeah, you have to, even if your steps are not like these big, bold, like, wow, I haven't, done everything I set out to achieve. I think noticing the incremental steps is just as important as those big steps, and just to be kind to yourself, because I think we can really give ourselves a hard time if we're not where we are. However, if you are on track, and amazing, celebrate that. It's like, yes, hooray, hooray, hooray. What about you?
No, totally. I mean, what you just said has made me think about two things. Firstly, that urgency feeling, because I have that really badly. I've realised it's like I constantly feel like I'm being chased. I find myself, even when I'm doing the washing up, I'm like rushing. I often feel this sense of, like you said, urgency, and like I'm rushing through life. And it's something that I've started to become more aware of, and I'm really trying to change that, because I don't want to feel like that. And I think quite a lot of us do feel like that. But I've just realized that everything I'm doing, like I'm constantly rushing from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And it's not a way to live. And as I say, I'm really trying to get some control back over that. And the other thing that you said made me think of something else, which I think is really worth bearing in mind. And I'm talking to myself here very much, which is that I think we overestimate, I don't know who said this originally, but we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And I think that's a really, really interesting thing to think about, because what I've realized is that I can only have a couple of things, a couple of priorities that I am focusing on in a year. I can't have 6 different things that I'm trying to do. And I've really realized that actually that is how I want to kind of live my life going forward, just to have 1 or 2 things that I'm really focusing on in a year, and remember that actually, because what I'm trying to say is, I've done it before. I've set myself so many goals, and inevitably I feel like I failed because I haven't achieved them all, right?
Yeah.
But actually, when I look back over the last few years, I've achieved a lot, really. And so again, it's remembering that we do overestimate what we can do in a year, but we underestimate what we can achieve in a decade. And, some people might be thinking, fucking hell, a decade, that's a long time. But actually, a decade can also go pretty quickly. And I think it's a really good idea to sort of think about your goals in a much more long-term way, rather than feeling like I've got to get this done and this done and this done and this done this year. It's just thinking, well, what can I get done in 5 years? Because I really think that saying, and again, I can't remember where I heard that first or who originally said that, but it is so true. Certainly for me, that I think I can do more in a year than I can. But I think that I will, looking back over a longer period of time, that is when you're like, actually, yes, I have achieved quite a lot, So I just think that's a really good way of thinking about it, if that makes sense.
I will only ever recommend brands that I know, love and use myself. And one of those is Ancient and Brave. Honestly, they've become part of my daily habits. The very first thing I do every morning is pour myself a big glass of water with their True Hydration in it. It feels like such a simple ritual, but it really sets me up for the day. And I know I'm properly rehydrating with their blend of electrolytes and minerals, especially before I exercise, which I always do in the morning. Then later on, when I make my coffee, I stir in their True Collagen powder into the coffee. Now, it blends in straight away, no fuss, there's no taste, and collagen is something we naturally lose as we age, but it's so important for our skin, joints, and overall vitality. Now, I'll be honest, Ancient and Brave may cost a little more than some of the tubs you'll spot on supermarket shelves, but the difference is you're getting the highest quality ingredients, sourced with integrity and tested to a higher standard, and absolutely no nasties added. That's why I trust them and why I think they're worth every penny. And because I want you to be able to try them out for yourself, I've got a special offer for you. As a listener of this podcast, you can get 20% off your very first order, All you need to do is click the link in the show notes and pop in the code PollyW20 at checkout. They've got more than just collagen and hydration too. They've got creatine, they've got blends, supplements. So it's a perfect chance to explore their range and make the most of that 20% off.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, because I think we can be really hard on yourself. And it's weird. Time is weird, isn't it? Because sometimes everything works and stuff happens in a short space of time. And it's like, wow, I can't believe I achieved all of that in that really short space of time. And then over other periods of time, things are a little slower and things take, it's the small actions you're taking consistently, which will all add up over a much longer expanse of time. So that's why I think it's important just to know where you're heading, what your goals are. And as you say, it's, and if you can, and honestly, Lucy, so to go back to that feeling of urgency, of rushing, I know exactly, I have had that forever.
Yeah,
and I can see that and now because I have both physically, but I have also, that has enabled me to mentally really focus on that feeling of rushing, and I've had to slow. I feel totally different and I can now recognize that sense of urgency and rushing in the people around me. So for example,
really,
so my husband Giles, it's like, I'm just like, you've got to slow down. It's like, I sense it, I feel it so deeply in other people, and I think we're, it's a really, I think for everyone, it's really important to see if you can recognize that within yourself, because I feel so much better now I've managed to sort of I just feel more present, I think, in what I'm doing, and not so focused always on the future, and not worrying so much about the past, but just being a bit more right here, and as you say, it's so good to have goals and know where you're going. But equally, we need to live today. We need to live in the moment. This is our best life. This is our best life. Yeah. And we have to remind ourselves to live our best lives right now, because I think otherwise we are constantly driving ourselves constantly forwards, and you forget about this moment.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just what I have. Honestly, I'm just reflecting on that now. Yeah. This has literally been my lesson.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about this, and I'm really intrigued to know, like, what has changed. And I mean, obviously, I know this has all come from your injury that's made you, you've had to slow down. But I love the fact that you say that it's meant that you've now, in general, been able to, you find it easier to, or you can recognize that in yourself and you find it easier. But I'm really curious to know, how have you changed that? I know you've been forced into it, but what has changed, and what have you done to allow yourself to stay in that space of not feeling that urgency, if that makes sense?
I think, firstly, it was sort of changing my schedule a little bit. So creating just a little bit more space in my schedule. So that started from my morning. So generally in the mornings, I would go, I take Giles to the station when he's working away from home, and then I'd go straight to the gym and I'd do quite a frenetic, full-on workout, and then I'd come back, I'd get my daughter up, I'd do my inner space sessions, and it was sort of, there was just not any space between any of that for a start. So obviously I wasn't doing the gym, I wasn't doing, there was things I wasn't doing, but I'm now beginning to do things again. But what I'm doing differently now is I'm mixing up my schedule for a start. So I'm not doing same thing every day in the same order. So I'm mixing that up. So that gives you different spaces and times. And I am giving myself bigger buffers between each activity. Yeah. And I'm with my work, I think I'm getting probably as much done, but I am not literally sat in front of my computer all day, every day, like I was, because I think there was an awful lot of stuff which I was doing, which wasn't really necessary because I felt I ought to be doing. But instead, I it's hard to explain. I'm just sort of, I'm super focused when I am at my computer and get the stuff done in a really focused way. And then I'm just giving myself a bit more space around the edges to do the other things. But because I'm putting exercise a little bit later in the day or whatever, it just seems to, I just feel like there's more space generally.
Yeah.
Which is nice, taking the dog for a walk, maybe, and I'm very fortunate, I work from home. I don't know everyone can't do that, but I'll take the dog for a walk maybe at lunchtime and go and get myself a coffee or, it's just mixing up my day without this very, very regimented schedule of I must be sat at my desk between 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock without a break. And I found that didn't work. That wasn't, often I would feel really heavy, rushed, and wouldn't get as much done. So I think it's about knowing what you need to do, being, and actually focused in on those tasks, and then giving yourself a break and a bit more often. I don't know. I think that's it. I mean, I'm obviously still in this process, and we'll see what it works. But I think I've realised I need to spend less time sat in front of my computer screen. And that has been a big learning this year as well. I think that drains my energy quite a lot.
Yeah.
So I've been consciously trying to do less of that and only when I really need to.
Yeah.
But, it might all change again, Lucy. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And actually, two things. Like, firstly, I feel the same about when I'm sat in front of my computer, because I can be glued to my laptop all freaking day if I'm not careful. But I really try and be intentional about getting up and moving regularly rather than just, because it's so easy to sit there and be working away and, 4 hours goes past or 3 hours goes past. And I'm like, my God, I haven't even moved. And also the other thing that I wanted to add, which is similar to what I said earlier about how I've realized that I tend to have too many goals. I tend to overestimate what I can do in a year. And the same used to be true for my days. I used to, because I have as you know, my rose gold Clever Fox A4 planner, and I put everything in there. And I used to, and I still do. I still put things. It's basically like an hourly every day. It's got like half-hour section, so I put everything in that paper diary, which I find really helpful. But I used to just put in way more. I used to completely overestimate what I could do in a day. I'd be like, I'll do 4 minisodes and 4 weekly emails and this and that. And it's like, no. I just realized that it takes me longer to do things than I think it will. And what that did, putting too much in my diary, that just made me feel I was constantly on the back foot, and I was constantly racing to get everything done, and then inevitably not getting everything done, and then feeling really bad about myself because I wasn't getting everything done that I'd put in my diary. So I've had to really take a step back and go, Lucy, you've got to be realistic about what you can actually get done in a day. It's only like your working day is 7-8 hours, whatever it is. I mean, I, like you, am fortunate because I work for myself, so I can mix it up. And I will very often, work later into the evening when people who are doing 9 to 5 have left the office and they're done. I can easily work into the evening, but I might have taken 2.5 hours off in the middle of the day to go on a big walk or do a workout or whatever it is. But yes, it's that realization that I always think I can do so much more than I actually can. And when you overestimate what you can do, you just constantly feel like you're failing.
Yeah.
So that for me has been really a really important thing to realize. And because I think we're just all so brainwashed that you are just meant to work. And, I've done this for decades. And actually, we're here to live our goddamn lives. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And yet I think we forget that because we're so conditioned to think that this is how we're supposed to live and this is what you are supposed to do. And if you're not sort of chained to your desk from 9 till 5 or 9 till 6, then you're not doing enough. But it's just not the case, I think. And we've got to realize that we are here to feel good and to actually feel alive and to actually live our lives, not constantly be hustling and grinding, which I think so many of us have a tendency to do.
Yeah,
Self
yeah,
included.
yeah, exactly. I think, and I do. It's weird. I think there's a lot of people who I follow online on social media who are talking about this feminine way of working that actually don't have to have the hustle and the grind.
Yeah.
And maybe this is also what I'm really trying to lean into as well. Is like actually we can achieve our goals in a way that actually allows you to do it in a way that feels good,
Yeah.
rather than constantly this rushing, this grinding, this pushing to
Yeah.
strive. And I'm really trying to lean into that because that's a much nicer way to live your days, because this is it. This is
Yeah.
it right now. We've got to enjoy our days and our work, and actually I think it is possible and I think you probably achieve more because you're coming at it from a very different energy, from a different place. It's lighter, it's softer, and it's a bit more easier and flowy. And I know, for people when you have got a lot on your plate, that can feel hard. But as you said, if we can really be focused on, even if it's 3 things you're going to complete in your day. Obviously, what you have to achieve, but just be realistic. What can I do? So at the end of the day, I would have done those things really well. I can tick them off my list, and then I can feel good about myself that I've actually achieved what I set myself out to achieve, rather than the opposite when you do too much and you feel shit about it. That is a much healthier way to live. And I unlike you, by 5 o'clock, I'm done. I really find it hard to do any sort of work past 5 o'clock, and also because I've got kids around and various things and dinner and blah blah. So I'm back, and I used to always feel kind of guilty about that, and I try and finish things off, or I'd like try and be, and now I'm like, no, I'm done. That's good. And it's also knowing, can you give yourself a cutoff point? Because nowadays, obviously, with our technology, our phones, and you can check your emails at all hours. You can be on, and I think we have to learn to go, right, no, I'm done. The day is done. I'm going to switch that off, and I'm going to do something different. Because even if you love your work, it's still good to do something different as well. And remember, other parts of your life which you love to do.
Yeah. I think the problem, certainly that I find, the problem with working for myself is that I'm never off.
No,
I'm never off. It's like there is always way more that I could be doing, and I constantly feel like, and there is always way more I could be doing. So, I think when you run your own business, it's and it's just me, like that. It's just me. I only have myself to rely on, and so that I definitely feel that quite a lot. That sort of, it's like my brain is never off. And that doesn't mean that I'm working 24/7, but it's always in my mind. I'm always thinking about something to do with my business. And actually, that's one thing that I really need to, work on, because even when I'm with friends, or even when I'm doing something that is, leisure rather than work, I'm still thinking about it. It really, I find it incredibly hard to switch it off. But that, I will add that that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I love what I do. So it's not as if I'm thinking, oh my God, I hate thinking about this 24/7. I don't. It's like I might be inspired to, think about something particular to talk about on the podcast, or I might be like, oh my God, I could ask that person if they'll be a guest, or, you know what I mean? It's actually not necessarily a bad thing. And in fact, do you know Jen Gottlieb? I love Jen Gottlieb. Do you know her? I really love her. I think she's an example of somebody who, she talks about this actually, how, she basically says, I don't have a work-life balance because basically my work is my life. And actually, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that if you love what you do. You know, and she talks very openly about this. Like her work is her life. She's married. She doesn't have kids, but she loves it. She bloody loves it. And, you know, like me, I mean, I work every single weekend. There's never a weekend when I'm not doing something to do with my business. It's just, you know, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. And it's not like I resent it, because it's my thing. It's what I do. So I think, you know, that is, again, going back to what Jen Gottlieb says, I think it's okay if you do work for yourself and you do feel like you're constantly on. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And of course we of course have to do other things, and, you know, see our friends and see our families and and do kind of other activities that don't involve work. But actually, if you're really passionate about what you do, and therefore you think about it 24/7, actually, I think that's a really good thing. And that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think work-life balance. I don't think that it's never going to be balanced, because and I think particularly, well, if you work a 9 to 5, 5 days a week, then you can come home and then you relax and you do whatever.
And you can totally switch off.
Fine, and you can totally switch off.
Yeah.
But I do think, if you have your own business, then obviously you're never going to get that work-life balance, because you hopefully love what you do, and you've got the drive to you have to have the drive
exactly
to do what you do, otherwise it would be really hard. So, you know, I don't get me wrong, I think about things all the time, and it's I think that balance is very hard. You know, I don't think you need it if you love what you do, because it's very different. It's like you're living out your purpose. So that is such a good thing in life. But I think it's about the pressure that we put on ourselves sometimes can be quite hard, and that's the bit, you know, as you say, it's like you feel like you've got someone on your back pushing, rushing you. That's the bit I've really noticed, that's the bit I've kind of trying to soften, because actually then you can do all the things still, but in a way that feels less urgent and more enjoyable.
And also, just to add, I think it is different when you're married with kids. You know, that's a whole other side of your life that I don't have to deal with, and I don't have. So I think, you know, like you say, you sort of switch off at 5 o'clock and that's it, because you've got a husband and kids and a family, and that's wonderful. And I think actually being single, you know, I suppose it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? In some ways, it allows me to focus more on my work, because I'm not having to think about, okay, well, I've got to cook supper for the family, and I've got to take this kid there, and da 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 da. So it's just horses for courses, really. It just depends on the situation. But yes, as you rightly say, what we don't want is to feel this constant urgency. But it is but, you know, going back to the original point of what we're talking about today, it is true, we've gone off on, I don't know where we've done today. I don't know where we've gone. But it's just, you know, now is a good time to just have a look at how things are going, how you are feeling, and how you want to feel as you move through the rest of 2026. And what can you tweak and change? What needs to be different to make the second half of this year better? It's just a good time to check in, rather than get to the end of the year and feel like you just did it all on autopilot. It's about finding the space to be intentional about how you're living your life ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it. It's about checking in. Are you rushing through? Are you not enjoying it? Are you feeling like it's, you know, you're just hanging out, holding on for the weekends or for the holidays? And if that is you, which we've all been there, then actually what can you do differently? You know, you still achieve your goals, but how can you show up in a slightly different way, which is going to make it more enjoyable? Because ultimately we might not have control of certain things in our lives, of, you know, what we've got to, you know, particularly if you work for somebody else, but we all have an opportunity to control how we go about it, and how we perceive it, and the pressure that we put on ourselves. Can we bring a little bit more joy, a bit more lightness, a little bit more softness into how we move through the rest of the year, so that it feels good. It feels good, and that we feel like we're living our best lives.
Exactly, because ultimately, that is all we ever want, is to feel good. That's what all of us are trying to achieve over and above everything else, is to feel good as much as we can.
Exactly.
So it's just checking in with how good you're feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've kind of gone off on some weird tangents today, but hey, we've got...
That might have been the most random conversation, yes.
Oh, I know. Anyway, well, I'm not quite sure what we're going to call. I'm not sure what we're going to call this, but anyway, I hopefully that. Well, thank you. Someone has written in the comments. This conversation is inspiring. Well, good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate that. Cool. All right.
All right, love.
Have a good
We'll be back
rest
next
of the
week.
week.
You too.
Exactly.
Speak to you later.
All right. Take care.
Lots of love, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.